Are we recording, Mary?
Yeah.
Yay. Well, good morning, my beloved community. Welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living Ukiah. I'm so happy that everyone is here, all of those that are in the center and all of you who are Zooming in. My name is Gail Rhodes. I am your presider and your practitioner. I'm just very happy to have you all with us today, joining in this consciousness. So we're going to jump right in it and start with an opening treatment. So settle in, relax, just be here now, knowing that there is only one thing, and that thing is spirit. We can call it whatever we like, but it is here, it is who we are, it is how we move through the universe. It is a power for good that we can use. So we either co-create intentionally or we co-create by default. And this morning we have chosen intentionally. We do that through beautiful music, through inspirational words, and through treatment, and through community. Just all of us being together and being on the same page that we are spirit. We are joyous, beautiful, prosperous, loving, compassionate, spiritual beings having this human experience. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for my magnificent journey with you. It amplifies when we are together and we hear the words that we agree with. So we release this into the universe knowing that it is already so, because that is what we have chosen. We're grateful that it is so, and we together confirm that it is by saying, and so it is. So now we are going to have some music by Mary Buckley. Mary, if you'll unmute yourself, we would love to hear you.
Thanks, Gail. This is a song I wrote almost 30 years ago, and I recently discovered it and decided, what the heck, I'll finish it and put it out there. It's called Autumn Leaves. Having just passed the equinox, it seems seasonal. Autumn leaves are falling down around the trees again. Wild geese are making V's across the sky. It's a time for moving in again, so the cycle can begin again. As the days embrace the darkness, so do I. Autumn leaves are falling down around the trees again. Wild geese are making V's across the sky. It's a time for moving in again, so the cycle can begin again. As the days embrace the darkness, so do I.
Thank you, Mary. That was lovely. I'm glad you finished it. So now it is time for our guest speaker. And again, this week, I'm very excited that Clovice Lewis will be our speaker. Everyone here knows him, but just in case there is someone who doesn't know his background, let me introduce him. Clovice is a professional cellist, I'm sure we've all seen him, and composer who composed his first symphony at the age of 17 and was a professor of computer music at UC Santa Barbara from 78 to 86. He has been a serial entrepreneur and software designer for the past 30 years. In addition to music and technology, he has had a lifelong passion for aviation and has been a private pilot since 1987. Clovice received a Master of Divinity from the Star King School for Ministry in May of 21. And in the process of becoming a Unitarian Universalist minister. Now, his ministry emphasizes breaking down racial, class, and ethnic barriers and preaching the gospel of the madness of human self-extinction. Today's topic that Clovice will be exploring with us is Who Took My God? And in this, he explores the boundaries between science and religion. Really interesting subject. So Clovice, please unmute yourself. And Mary, make sure we're on, what is it?
Speaker view.
Speaker view, thank you.
When I was just a little lad, my father said, "Son, you see that universe? It's gone into the red. You can make a world or two and create a human race and watch over them from your throne in outer space. And you know you won't be bored after you make day, because you can tap, tap, tap your hours away. Thou shalt not tap, tap, tap. Don't commit. Tap, tap, tap. Have no other God before me." Now that funny, slightly sacrilegious song was written when I was 17 years old. My friend David Rappaport wrote the lyrics and I wrote the music. And there was more to it. In fact, it was going to be an entire musical that David and I decided we were going to write. Obviously, the musical was about organized religion. And in this first scene, which is the opening of the musical, people are milling about on stage. They look bored, confused, bewildered. After a while, a man says, "What should we do?" And a woman says, "I know, we should pray." And then all the people on the stage get down on their knees, and suddenly a man appears in flowing robes on a trapeze. And he sings the song I just sang. And the musical went on from there. In fact, the tap, tap, tap refrain is enthusiastically sung by the people on the stage in response to Jesus on the trapeze through more pretty irreverent lyrics. Yes, I was 17 years old and I was already seriously questioning my Catholic upbringing. By that time in my life, nothing about Christianity made any sense to me. I was beginning to understand that it never would. And quite aside from the fact that I made fun of it, I was also going through a rather painful divorce from it. To be honest, my questions about Christianity started a long time before then, when I was in catechism class as a child. Too many of the questions I raised in response to what I was told were unsatisfactorily answered with, "Well, Clovice, that's just a mystery of faith." And the painful divorce I was feeling was the result of this feeling that my entire moral and spiritual universe was being unraveled at the core of my being. Why is this? Was I a terrible sinner? Was the devil causing me to fall away from my religion? What was wrong with me? How come I couldn't believe things that seemed to me to be unbelievable? Why don't I have enough faith to overcome my doubts like other people seem to? And these questions were all very serious to me at the time. I was drifting away from anything I knew about religion. And that growing distance made me feel isolated from other people. And it made me feel wrong. I didn't have any guidance through these waters I was trying to navigate. See, at that time, I still believed in God. But I was slowly forming an opinion that whatever God existed had to be reasonable. Indeed, had to be much more reasonable than the God I was taught to fear. Fear of God was one of the first things to tumble. It seemed to me that a reasonable God would not require me to be fearful of it. Why would the God that created all things in the universe need me to have any opinion of him, good or bad, fearful or praising, I thought? Why would he care? The concept of sin didn't seem reasonable to me, and it didn't make sense. It's not the definition of sin, to be an error or to cause offense, that bothered me. I understood that part. The thing that seemed unreasonable to me is that God would punish me for something Adam and Eve did. One of those uncomfortable questions I asked in catechism was, if my father committed a crime, would I have to spend the rest of my life in jail for it, for what he did? The answer was always no. Of course, you can guess that my next question elicited the mystery of faith response, when I would then ask, well then, how come God condemns all of us for what they did? Of course, the whole issue of condemnation was another thing I found baffling. Why would God create me just to condemn me for what I think or say or do? Why even create me in the first place? So the answer catechism offered was, we're created in the image of God. Unlike angels who were created to serve God and glorify him and who cannot sin, we were given free will. And so I thought, okay, what's the advantage of having free will? Free will sounds like a bad deal to me, doesn't it to you? I mean, if I did something to really piss God off, like have premarital sex, then I'm screwed for eternity. I, like most people, remember the first time I had sex. I assure you, I was not married. I was 19 years old. I was in college, and I was still wrestling with my Catholic upbringing. I can tell you, I had a very profound breakthrough in my thinking about religion that night. I remember sitting at the edge of my bed looking at Rebecca, who was also Catholic, and wondering when the lightning was going to strike us. And at that moment, I didn't care. I thought to myself, how can this be bad in any way? Why should Rebecca and I go to hell for something that feels like God created us to do? So diving back under the covers, I thought, well, because no lightning has struck me down, premarital sex must be okay with God because it's just fine with me. Again, I was in college. And then I became an atheist. I thought of creation as a process that's not the result of or in control of an omnipotent, omniscient being. The process of creation is neither reasonable nor unreasonable. And finally, a process-oriented universe made sense to me because it accommodates both creationism and evolution in the sense that creation is simply a more spontaneous expression of whatever consciousness underpins reality. So to me, a process-oriented universal view does not dismiss the importance of consciousness. It simply does not ascribe to that consciousness a personality or any particular intelligence. I was an atheist because I rejected the belief in the existence of deities. In a narrower sense, atheism is specifically the position that there are no deities. Most inclusively, atheism is the absence of belief that any deities exist. So in this process-oriented universe I just described, there's no supernatural being that's any more holy than, or more sacred, or more divine than you or I. Over the years, I gained more experience in life. And I came to this scratching feeling that there might be some higher force or power, if you will, that might be at work at times in the universe. More specifically, that force may actually tip the scales of chaos in our favor on occasion. Now, whether that force is an expression of some intelligent action or not, I couldn't say. But most of the time, I now define myself as an agnostic, that is, a person who believes that nothing is known or can be known of the existence or nature of God or of anything beyond material phenomena. A person who claims neither faith nor disbelief in God. Did you know there's a category of agnosticism called apathetic or pragmatic agnosticism? And that's the view that there's no proof of either the existence or non-existence of any deity, but since any deity that may exist appears unconcerned for the universe or the welfare of its inhabitants, the question is largely academic. Therefore, the existence of this deity has little or no effect on personal human affairs and should be of little theological interest. Now, some people are confused about the difference between atheism and agnosticism. In fact, many believe an agnostic is one who outright rejects the existence of a deity and think that an atheist is one who needs proof of that existence. But according to Richard Dawkins, a distinction between agnosticism and atheism is unwieldy. And it depends on how close to zero a person is willing to rate the probability of existence of any godlike entity. About himself, Dawkins contends, I am agnostic only to the extent that I'm agnostic about fairies at the bottom of the garden. Dawkins also identifies two categories of agnostics: temporary agnostics in practice and permanent agnostics in principle. And Dawkins considers temporary agnosticism an entirely reasonable position, but he views permanent agnosticism as fence-sitting intellectual cowardice, as he puts it. Some would argue that faith is all that is needed to perceive the God I couldn't find. It is the same faith that informs us many things we cannot see or measure are valid. But you see, I still believe that God, that is personality or intelligence we call God, must be reasonable. And here's what I mean. It makes no sense to me that this God, who many believe wants to make his presence, laws, and requirements known to us, needs to rely on human beings to interpret and then write down what he wants us to know. Why bother with such a crude, inefficient means of communication? Why can't the God that spins galaxies in place, directs inscrutable quarks, and invented DNA provide us with more clear directions? Aside from being reasonable, it seems this God should also be immensely efficient, right? So why all the puzzles and secret handshakes and the mysteries of faith, the word reserved only for those who can hear it? And why does this God need me to help him build hospitals and orphanages in Nigeria? So many physicists now say that we are co-creators in our existence. The physicists who make these claims about co-creation are not necessarily envisioning a collaboration between us and any particular deity. The collaboration is rather between us and everything else in existence. If a godlike entity is also present, well, the more the merrier. As co-creators, we may need to be careful about what we create or manifest. And there's a realm where thought is apparently quite powerful. And you, my dear friends, know this as science of mind practitioners. Quantum is a term in physics referring to scales where quantum mechanical effects become important when studied as an isolated system. And typically this means distances of 100 nanometers or less. That's 10 to 7 power meters, or some very low temperature. And more precisely, it's where the action or angular momentum is quantized. Quantum mechanics, which provides a mathematical description of much of the behavior and interactions of matter and energy, is a term many of us are familiar with. Most fundamental processes in molecular electronics, organic electronics, and organic semiconductors also originate in the quantum realm. and are described in quantum mechanical terms. What makes quantum mechanics so difficult to understand is that everything about it goes against our very everyday experiences and common sense. J.B.S. Halden marveled. Quantum theory is not only queerer than we suppose, it is queerer than we can suppose. Niels Bohr said, anybody not shocked by quantum mechanics has not understood it. And there are some counterintuitive truths about quantum mechanics. I'll say QM. So please bear in mind that everything I tell you that follows has been experimentally verified. QM tells us that an observation of one object can instantaneously influence the behavior of another greatly distant object, even if no physical force connects the two. QM tells us that observing an object to be someplace causes it to be there. It wasn't there before you observed it. If we observed an atom to be someplace, it was our looking at it that caused it to be there. QM tells us that an object can be in many places and in many states at once. QM denies the existence of a physically real world independent of someone's observation of it. That's spooky. It's that last point. I read in an article published in August of 2021, just a little while ago. It's called, Why is No One Taught the One Concept in Quantum Physics Which Denies Reality by Chris Ferry. And he wrote, you may be inclined to believe that when you observe something in the world, you are passively looking at it just the way it would have been had you not been there. But quantum contextuality rules this out. There is no way to define a reality that is independent of the way we choose to look at it. So as you can see, common sense, the quantum realm are radically opposite things. If you're having trouble with this quantum stuff, you're not alone. Einstein struggled with accepting quantum theory and its implications. He said, I cannot seriously believe in quantum theory because physics should represent a reality in time and space, free from spooky actions at a distance. That's that famous quote when Einstein spoke of spooky actions at a distance. And he meant that those two objects speeding away from each other at the speed of light are still instantaneously connected. Fiddle with one particle and the other is fiddled with exactly the same, even though no one is fiddling with it. So the implications of the quantum realm scream for an encounter with human consciousness. Eugene Wigner declared, it is not possible to formulate the laws of quantum mechanics in a fully consistent way without reference to the consciousness. All that said, many serious working professional physicists do express a belief in all or part of the holistic nature of the universe. But as scientists, they tend to be a bit, pardon the pun, agnostic about the whole issue. And furthermore, many physicists ignore the credible implication that objects in a physical world can actually be directed and influenced by human consciousness. Although all physicists utilize the mechanics and mathematics of the quantum realm, most refuse to accept and acknowledge what is increasingly being called the consciousness enigma. So here's what I'm getting to in this whole discussion of how to navigate in the waters between faith and God, agnosticism, atheism. It should be abundantly clear that if people living in biblical times knew what we now know about the nature of the universe and our place in it, their ideas about religion, and more specifically God, would have been totally different than what has been handed down to us. And yet people living in the modern world insist that the beliefs of our distant ancestors, who, by the way, never talked on a telephone or saw a reality show on TV or flew in an airplane or listened to a radio or had a fraction of the knowledge we now possess about what is actually up there in the night sky, that they should somehow be more true. These feelings, these what were them facts, how they can be more relevant than modern beliefs. So if you're looking for something to believe in, I say start reading a book that isn't thousands of years old, that even the National Enquirer would have some trouble publishing today. And personally, I'd rather live honestly, doubts and all, than live a life in fear of a God that apparently can't abide those doubts. What kind of God wants you to question reason about and doubt about except him? God gave us a brain and free will, but doesn't communicate with us about some plan he has for us in any clear, unambiguous manner, and then condemns us to hell for what? Being human and exercising our free will? I'm sorry, but I truly believe that what motivates many people, as I've said, is ultimately a fear of death or punishment. I think these people are engaged in what Dawkins labels as fence-sitting intellectual cowardice. That's not to say that I don't fear death. What sane person wouldn't? I just don't fear afterlife punishment from some weirdly sadistic, unjust, unreasonable deity. To those who insist that life exists after death, I insist that this is an unprovable concept. I love to believe that I will continue in some manner of consciousness, some existence after I die, but I'm not betting on it. I hope to be pleasantly surprised. That said, no one, including Jesus, has apparently ever returned from the dead in a manner that is scientifically credible or provable. I just cannot reasonably share the faith that many people have that he's going to return somehow. And I cannot believe in a God that will condemn me for not believing something that makes no sense. And this is why I've coined a new description of myself. I am an agno-atheist. I do not believe in the existence of a deity, but I do not claim to know if a deity does or does not exist. These days, I also define myself as a pantheist, meaning I actually believe everything is divine. I'll tell you this. I'd rather live in a world where people are much more afraid of harming each other than of insulting God. If I believe in a God, which I sometimes do, but most times don't, that God is reasonable, fair, doesn't come in three parts. She's dead sexy. She delights in all of us just the way we are. She marvels at the interactions between what we think of as good and evil, reinitializes and reinvents us when we wear out or are killed in the simulation, and she has a wicked sense of humor. If that's not the God you believe in, then I invite you to make up one for yourself. But please don't fear the one that some ancient people made up. In the worst case scenario, when I die, everything I think I am will blink out of existence. In the best case scenario, my God will meet me after I die, and she will ask me if I want to dance. I will, of course, say, absolutely yes, but first, do you mind if I ask you a few questions? Namaste.
Thank you, Clovice. That was fantastic. I love it. Would you like to do the closing treatment now?
I would be happy to do that.
Thank you.
We recognize God, spirit, great power, all there is, or whatever arises from the depths of our being, as the ultimate limitless presence and power in the universe. We are all there is. We accept that we are all one, and with you, God, are one. We know God acts through us, as us, and in all life. We are one with God's spirit of life, great power, all there is now. Already knowing that we are part of God, we realize without doubt or reservation that the good we desire to experience is now taking form through universal power. We know that our desires for peace, harmony, and enlightenment are complete, and we accept those gifts. We thankfully accept that the good is ours now. We accept and give thanks for this good right here, right now. We now release your prayer, all of our prayer, to the activity of the universal law of mind, completely freeing ourselves of concern. We let go and let God, spirit of life, great power, all there is. We release this truth in total belief that all is done, all is in balance, and all is as it should be. There are words that let us, as the instantiations of the divine, release our treatment out of our hands with total conviction that we believe and know that what we desire is already done through the power of God. And those words are, and so it is.
Whew. Thank you, Clovice. That was absolutely powerful. The talk and the treatment, absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much. So now it is time for our offering. And Mary, if you could put the offering up on the screen, know that whatever it is that you're giving today or however you tithe through the month, it is very much appreciated by everyone so that we can continue to have this spiritual experience. So I thank you before you even give. So let's all say together, divine love through me blesses and multiplies this gift with all my heart and with all, whoops, I lost it, Mary. With all my heart and with all my mind, I know that I am saying yes to something I value. With all others present here, we dedicate these gifts to the values and visions we share. And so it is. So now I have a few announcements. As always, we continue to give to Building Bridges. You can get a hold of Teresa Staber, or you can take it down to the center itself. They will take it for you. You could drop it off at Trudy Morgan's house, or call the staff at 234-3270. The other announcement I have is that there is a meeting after services next Sunday. Oh, first, let me tell you who will be speaking next Sunday. It will be Clovice again. Thank you so much. I have so enjoyed this with you. And Calvin Johnson will be our soloist, and Terry Brown will be our presider and practitioner. So please join us again next week. If you can make it into the live services, you should do that, because we are going to have a meeting after, and we're going to be discussing, we have some options for what our future looks like. And we're going to be deciding which one of the options we feel will be the best to move forward with. So it's a really important meeting. I know some of you can't make it there, so stay online and try and make it if you can, because decisions will be being made. That'll be very exciting for us. So thank you everyone for this Sunday morning. It was really special for me. And Mary Buckley is going to sing us out. If you'd like to stay after Mary's song, we always have a little bit of chit chat after. But if not, I want to say thank you for joining us and have a fantastic Sunday.
Mary, would it be possible to make me co-host so I can share computer sound? You know, can't hear you.
I don't know how to do that.
Participant list, if you hit participants at the bottom and then next to my name it says make co-host. And if that doesn't work, that's okay. I can just play through the speakers. And I just changed my idea of what song I want to sing based on what Clovice said. Because I've had almost, I won't say identical, but very similar spiritual story. And this is sort of where I landed.
I'll try it. I'll try it, Mary. I'm not
You
sure
see the
if it'll work.
participant list?
Yeah, it says change host. It doesn't
And
say it doesn't say co-host.
Oh, well, I can change it right back when I'm done.
Okay, we'll try it. Well, I don't know. Maybe we
Thank
better
you.
not.
Well, try it.
Okay, we'll try.
There we go. And share computer sound. Shouldn't take long.
Oh, okay. So then you can just change it.
And I'll give it back to you. Yeah. So
Okay.
this song is called Gift of Faith, which is a bit of an ironic title because it's actually, I have no gift of faith. Oh, actually, I could put the words into the chat for everybody. In case you can't hear the words. I just wanted you to hear the harmonies. Okay. It's as loud as I can get it. That's better.
I have no gift of faith, I will return to dust. But one thing I have learned, when all else fails trust, life goes on. The dust will be reborn, the dance of life goes on. We may not be here long, but we have joined the song and life goes on. Life goes on. I have no gift of faith, I will return to dust. But one thing I have learned, when all else fails trust, life goes on. The dust will be reborn, the dance of life goes on. We may not be here long, but we have joined the song and life goes on. The dust will be reborn, the dance of life goes on. We may not be here long, but we have joined the song and life goes on. Life goes on.
That's it.
Beautiful.
Mary, that was amazing. I love it. I am so happy that you changed the song because it is exactly what we were talking about. Bless you, the kindred spirit.
It was actually presented at a UU service by, some of you may know Judy Fiel, who does music for the UU service in Helena, Montana.
It was beautiful. Thank you, Mary.
Well, some people have trouble with the concept of no gift of faith. Like, what are you talking about? We all have faith. But that's not, it's kind of, it's not exactly what I meant. And it really fits in with what Clovice was saying. I think it's, in that context, I hope it's clear.
Yeah, was for me. Thank you. It was beautiful. Well, thank you all. We will see you next Sunday.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And Mary, do you want to put us